Think of almost any culture on Earth, and you will find the same deeply rooted assumption. Women are inherently emotional, sensitive, and irrational, while men are the rational, stoic, and logical ones. This assumption shapes almost everything we do. It dictates who gets executive leadership, how we resolve office conflicts, and how doctors diagnose psychological symptoms. Yet, when we actually look at the neurological and biological data, the scientific foundation for this universal belief completely falls apart. Researchers at the University of Michigan spent 75 days tracking the daily emotional fluctuations of 142 men and women. They measured every high, low, and mood swing across different biological states. The data showed absolutely no meaningful difference in emotional volatility between the sexes. The hormonal highs and lows we so often attribute exclusively to women were mirrored exactly in the men. If biological emotional engines fire in the exact same way, why do male and female behaviors look so drastically different in the real world? To answer that, we have to stop looking at emotion as a single concept. We need to break it down into three distinct measurable layers: experience, expression, and memory. Let's start with the first layer: how we experience emotion versus how we express it. This paper by Kring and Gordon details a study where researchers recorded people watching highly emotional films. On the surface, the results matched the cultural expectation perfectly. The women were highly expressive, smiling, frowning, and wincing at the screen, while the men remained relatively blank and unmoving. But this chart shows what was happening under the skin. Skin conductance measures electrical activity caused by sweat, a direct indicator of physical arousal. And while the men's faces stayed flat, their internal physiological arousal spiked identically to the women's. In fact, when the films elicited dominant negative emotions like fear and anger, the physical spikes recorded in the men actually surpassed the women's. The men were functioning as physiological internalizers. They experienced intense biological emotion, but they acted as a dam, blocking it from ever reaching their faces. This brings us to the second layer: regulation. Once those intense biological spikes occur, how does the brain process and control them? To find out, we can look at fMRI brain scans of individuals practicing cognitive reappraisal. Cognitive reappraisal is the brain's ability to actively reframe and suppress a negative emotion. The scans confirm that men and women are equally successful at doing this, but they get there using entirely different neural pathways. Here is the male neural pathway. In these scans, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for effortful conscious thought, remains dark, while the amygdala dims rapidly. This suggests that for men, emotional suppression has become a neural reflex. It's a pathway so well worn by social training that the brain no longer needs to work hard to shut the emotion down. It happens automatically. The female neural pathway looks completely different. Instead of an automatic shutoff, women's brains actively engage the ventral striatum, lighting up here. They use positive emotions to consciously counteract and reappraise the negative ones. The end result, emotional control, is exactly the same, but male and female brains have been wired to use entirely different physiological tools to achieve it. The third and final layer is memory. If we look at this line graph from the research of Ursula Hess, we see an identical high expectation for both men and women to experience happiness as a secondary emotion. Society writes specific scripts dictating exactly what men and women are supposed to feel. These scripts are so powerful that they force us to subconsciously edit our own autobiographies. When recalling personal negative events, men consistently overreport feeling angry or happy, while women overreport feeling sad, matching cultural expectations instead of actual events. The book Delusions of Gender highlights a study proving the strength of this conditioning. Women usually score very high on emotion sensitivity tests, but when asked to spend just a few minutes imagining themselves as men, their scores plummet to match the male baseline. Our perceived emotionality is a self-fulfilling prophecy, heavily warped by the social scripts we are handed at birth. These social scripts carry heavy real-world penalties. A study titled "Heavier Lies Her Crown" examines the specific demands placed on leaders regarding emotional labor. Women are expected to perform exhausting interpersonal emotional labor constantly, gauging and managing the feelings of everyone around them. Yet, if they express dominant emotions like anger, they face severe career and social backlash. The emotionality we attribute to women is often a form of performance, demanded by a society that aggressively polices which feelings they are allowed to show. This pressure forces men to mask vulnerability behind a veneer of anger or detachment. When fear or sadness is reframed this way, it becomes difficult to identify the original distress. This masking creates dangerous mental health blind spots, where the underlying pain goes unrecognized and untreated until it reaches a breaking point. Emotions do not have a gender. When we recognize that male stoicism is often hidden arousal and female emotionality is often just socialized labor, we can discard these outdated scripts and allow humans to simply be human.